This is a Regained Wellness podcast with Jamie Logie, episode 149. What is the best cardio equipment for fitness and weight loss?
And we go a little something like this. Hit it.
Hey guys, what's happening? Welcome back to the podcast. I'm Jamie Logie. I run regainedwellness.com, and it brings to you the Regained Wellness podcast. So thanks for coming on out, checking out the show. If you're new here, extra special thanks. Not that there's no thanks to returning listeners, but if you haven't checked this out yet, this is your first show. Thanks for taking the time to listen. I know there's a ton of podcasts out there right now, especially like health and fitness and all that sort of stuff. So I appreciate you looking at this one. And if you want to even check back further, I've got, almost 150 episodes and interviews on any topic you could think of with fitness, nutrition, health. So you're bound to find a lot of good stuff. And so for this episode, we're talking about cardio equipment and what's the best or what would be the best for you specifically, and looking at all the different pieces and pros and cons, and I kind of give my 2 cents on them, as well as looking at, just normal things like regular cardio, whether it's walking or hiking or running, and kind of just, touching on all of that so you can get a good insight into the whole issue. So before we get into all that, make sure you subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, probably Apple Podcast, iTunes, but I don't know if you get them from the podcast fairy or find them under your sofa cushions, wherever you get them, I should be there. Okay, let's get right into this. So I've covered a lot on the show about different, ways to get fit, and if you want to build muscle and lose fat and all that sort of stuff. And, as fitness has become more evolved and there's more research and stuff goes into it, as far as aesthetically looking good, looking lean and looking whatever, cardio, regular old school cardio as we know it, like slogging away on a treadmill for hours, we're learning maybe not the most effective way as far as, fitness and burning calories. And I've touched on high intensity interval training and stuff like that. And I've got other episodes more in depth, might be a bit better way to build fitness and burn calories longer. And I'll link up those shows if you want a lot more in-depth info. So if you go to the show notes today, it's regainedwellness.com/149, and I'll have everything I'm sort of talking about linked up there. But I mean, regular cardio has kind of been pushed to the side in favor of this more, high intensity based, boot camp and CrossFit and weight training and circuit training, which is amazing and it's super effective. But there is still a place for regular cardiovascular fitness, and people forget what it's not a problem, but the majority of people are just in the gym to look good, and that's cool. And they really might not be doing anything specifically for health reasons. And if you're younger and whatnot, I get it. But for a lot of people, cardiovascular health, like the heart, like the strength and health of your heart and your lungs, is very important. And you might not be at a place where you can do crazy CrossFit workouts or metabolic conditioning where you're doing all these circuits and your heart rate's through the roof and the whole deal. Sometimes, actual regular steady state cardio is beneficial. It's still going to make you feel good. It's still, got the ability to burn body fat. And ultimately it's your cardiovascular health, which is extremely important. And with all this, I mean, your diet obviously is going to be paramount. You can be doing all the HIIT training and strength training and circuit training in the world, but if you're eating like crap, it's not really going to come back in the best light. It's, the expression is you can't out train a bad diet. And that is very true. And I've tried, trust me. So I want to look at why, cardiovascular workouts and equipment and machines can still be good, and why that is a valid way to still get exercise, still boost your health, still improve your wellness, body composition, the whole deal. So this is about looking at all the specific equipment from treadmills to rowing machines. And so I'll just touch on all that and, just kind of break it down as far as what benefits each of those machines bring or what their shortcomings might be. So the first things we'll look at is honestly regular cardio in the form of what you can do just outside or wherever you are. And the first is going to be regular walking, which is such an underrated way to get fit and healthy. I've seen people get such good results and weight loss achievements and progress just through walking programs. And so the benefit with walking is obviously you can do it anywhere. You just need a pair of shoes. You can go at your own pace. You can go as long as you want. The people don't think of it as necessarily like a big calorie burner, but when you can go for an extended period of time, you lock into this what they call steady state cardio. So where your body's humming along and it's a little more efficient and actually a good way to burn body fat. And there's not a lot of impact on the joints. You're not pounding the pavement, so you can go a little bit longer. It's a little more protective. It's good for your heart. It's good for your lungs. It's actually a good cognitive exercise too. There's something about walking which is able to kind of clear people's minds. And this is something they do when they kind of look at the effects of meditation. And some of these can actually be achieved with walking, especially if you're walking with your head up and keeping your line of sight on the horizon. And there's something about the combination of the movement of your body with the brain awareness and your sight lines that can actually increase mood, boost your mood, which will happen from the exercise as well, but also, lowering things like depression. It can boost creativity and memory and stuff like that. So if you are walking, I mean, it's easy to, if you notice after a while, you keep your head down, and whether you're just looking so you don't wipe out or trip or whatever, but it's kind of just a natural state. Make sure you keep your head up and look straight on the horizon, and that it's such a mood boosting thing in conjunction with the movement of your body. So that idea of steady state cardio, where it's not too intense and you're kind of locked in at a comfortable pace, is actually a good body fat burner. And if you do it earlier in the day to kind of start your day, and maybe wake up, have a little bit of coffee, you can go out on this run, because it's not like you need a huge calorie surplus to do this. This is something you can do on an empty stomach and be burning some body fat, because you're able to tap into those body fat stores a little more easily, because you don't have all this food in your system to digest, to go through before you tap into your body fat. So when you do that, still make sure you're getting your breakfast within 30 to 60 minutes afterwards to replenish yourself. But it's an effective strategy that a lot of competitive bodybuilders and fitness models and anyone like that whose job sort of revolves around how they look. It's a strategy a lot of people use, this sort of fasted cardio, but it can't be too intense. You don't want to be go out there like necessarily doing like sprints and everything. You want to just like lock into this healthy range, and you can count your heart rate and you can track it. Usually the best way is to listen to a few body cues, and the first thing is being, you might feel you're obviously getting warm depending on the temperature. You might not be sweating a lot. That varies between people, but you should be feeling a little bit warm. You should be going at a pace where you can still carry on a conversation. If you can't really catch your breath, it's probably a little too much and you're out of that ideal range. The next thing is you might be hearing yourself breathing, sort of just that auditory sound of hearing your own breath. So that probably means you're in the right range. And a good indicator that you're kind of in that good fat burning, healthy state is your lips tend to get dry and you tend to lick them without noticing. So that's just one of those indicators that your body's, metabolically in the right way. So walking, awesome. The next thing is just running or jogging. And this can go either way. So now you're looking at a little more intensity. And with that comes a little more pressure and impact on the joints, the knees, the ankles, your feet. All this can even transfer up into your back and whatever. So if you've been running for a long time and you've never experienced any issues or whatever, then you're obviously probably good to keep going. But a lot of competitive or, even recreationally competitive people who are doing, 5Ks or 10Ks or whatever can run into these problems, because when you progress from walking, you're getting, some of that cardiovascular benefit without the intensity and joint problems. When you move into running, everything's bumped up a notch. So that constant pounding, depending on your body weight, on your joints and whatever, it's not for everybody. And so if it's something you've struggled with, don't feel bad about that, because you're looking at a little more of a harsher impact on your body. It's something you can still build towards, and then it's a matter of getting into, doing progressive walking where there's intervals of light jogging for 90 seconds or so, and then building that up, or those couch to 5K programs. So another good form of cardio, and I've done a whole show on this, I'll link it up, is called low intensity interval training. So with high intensity interval training, you're looking at a full out burst of activity, whether it's like a sprint or a bike sprint or a burpee or whatever. And you're doing that from 15 to 20, maybe 30 seconds. But if you're doing it properly, you really shouldn't be able to go more than 20 seconds. And then it's followed by a lower, steadier recovery time. So say you're on a stationary bike, full out sprint for 20 seconds, you dial that intensity up and just kick the crap out of yourself. Then you dial it way down and, go for as long as you feel you need to recover. Ideally, that's anywhere from like a minute and a half. You can go up to 2 minutes. It's not written in stone that if you're not recovered and you're at the 90-second point, that you have to start the next interval again. Go until you feel recovered. But you do this process back and forth, and it's a super high calorie burner. It's a metabolic booster. It can boost natural hormone levels. It's awesome. But for some people, it's, if you're not at that state yet, or you're new to exercise, or you're a little older, or you're trying to transition in, that intensity might be a little too much. So there's what's called low intensity interval training. And like I said, this whole show I've done on it, and a lot of research from Queen's University here in Ontario and I think Ohio State University is showing it, even though not as intense as a high intensity interval training, is showing to have a lot of the same benefits. And that's being that calorie burning effect and ability to burn body fat and boost metabolism and burn calories long after the workout, and positive hormonal changes in the body and all that. So what it looks like is over the course of, say, a half hour, and it works best just with regular walking. And it starts off with like a 3 to 5 minute gradual pace, however you would walk normally, like not in a rush, whatever, going. Then at around that like 5-minute point, you're going to boost up the intensity to either a very brisk pace or a light jog. And you're going to do that for 90 seconds. Then you're going to go back to that 3-minute to maybe 5-minute regular pace again, and then repeat that whole process over the half hour. And this is going to be really good to get some of those effects. But even, if you're wanting to transition into running, this is a good way to kind of alternate back and forth. And it's something you can do on a treadmill as well too. So these are just the first few. Just want to look at like walking, running, and then this form of low intensity interval training. And just, as the weather is transitioning and people want to get outside, this is still a good form of cardio. So that brings us into the gym and looking at the specific cardio equipment. So I'll start with the treadmill. And it's, basically we're looking at the same effects and issues that are faced with outdoor running or walking. You can go at a good walking pace, and it's going to be easier on the joints, whatever. You can run on them, but then you're going to get into that issue of the constant pounding, whatever. The difference is, though, with a treadmill and with good treadmills, they kind of work off this. It's kind of with the belt, there's kind of like a floating base system to it. So even though you're pounding a hard surface, there's a little bit of give that you're not necessarily going to feel, but it's going to be a lot better compared to running on pavement or sidewalk. And it's just going to have that. I don't want to call it a cushion, because you don't feel that like a soft kind of impact, but there is a little more of the give. And over time, it's probably going to be a better thing. And the advantage with a treadmill is you can change the incline and make it a little more intense. So for someone who likes to do a lot of walking, you can bump up that incline however many degrees you want. So now that's going to make it a little bit more of a metabolism booster, a little more calorie burning. It's going to work a little more, some of the muscles in your legs. It's a little more engaging, but at the same time, not that impact and joint problem and joint pain. So if you're in the gym and you like using the treadmill, make sure you use the variation of the height that you can put it up to, and it's just going to make it a little bit better of a cardio workout. The other advantage with really good treadmills, if you're working out in a fitness club, they're going to have high-level treadmills that you wouldn't be able to buy and put in your own home, and they cost a ton because they have so many different functions and settings and stuff. So you can make it very specific to, whatever your weight is or your height or your age, and it can be customized very well. And there's a lot of different programs on them. Those are good. I honestly just always recommend using the manual program and controlling your own pacing. So with the ones that it's like, hill climb mode, and it'll go up and down and then it'll speed and you got to go with it. If you're looking for just general cardiovascular health, maybe some of that body fat burning, it's like I said earlier, get into that, lock into that range that you're, that proper speed where you're feeling all those effects, hearing yourself breathe, licking the lips, being able to carry on a conversation, the whole deal, and then just ride that out and stay in that zone. So I always just recommend anyone I've ever trained kind of keep that manual setting, and then you can control the intensity on it. The good treadmills will also have heart rate monitors, well, like whether they're those metallic tabs that are on the handles or on the side. So, and they're pretty accurate actually. Like they do give you a really good indicator of where your heart rate's at. So again, like if you're someone who likes numbers, it gives you a lot of good information. I don't think you have to be overly consumed with being in the exact range. And like I said, like look for those body cues. But if you're wanting to be in a specific, correct heart rate and you just want to check those numbers, the easiest formula is you take 220 minus your age, and then you multiply it by 0.6 or 0.8. And that's going to be, you want to be somewhere in that range. The 0.6 is like the 60% of your heart rate. And that's kind of like the low end, and then up to around 0.8. So if you're somewhere around there, you're in the correct way. But your heart rate can change as the workout goes, and a lot of other factors too. And then I don't know, I don't like to have to be constantly monitoring exactly where I'm at. So have a look every now and then if you use that formula and just see where you're at. But look out for those body cues first to know you're in the right range. Okay, so that's treadmill. Good because it's very customizable. You can adjust a lot of settings, intensity, speed, incline, and all that. Not the greatest if you have joint problems, ankle problems, potentially low back problems. It's maybe going to make those things a little bit worse. So that'll take us to the elliptical or the cross trainer machine. And just in case you don't know what I'm talking about, it's the machines that sort of look like that gazelle where you're up and you're you're going in sort of this oval pattern with your legs, and it looks like you're skiing, kind of that cross-country skiing. I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. So now these are good because they mimic the running motion. So they're engaging those same muscles. There's arm activation, whatever. But now you don't have that joint impact because you're on sort of this floating, rotating platform for both legs that work in conjunction. And you're not pounding your knees, you're not pounding your joints, your ankles, everything. So these are good if that's an issue for you. They're not as intense because your body's a little more supported, so your muscles aren't going to get that same workout. So say as if you were on the treadmill with that incline, you're going to get a lot more muscular engagement through your glutes and hamstrings and calf muscles, and even all those little stabilizer muscles that have to support in your feet and your ankles and all that. So with the cross trainer, not as intense. You can change the settings to bump the intensity up. But if you've been on one of these before, I'm sure you've played around with it. You can crank the intensity all the way up. It's not the most resistance in the world. One of the advantages with it is you can, with a good one, you can change again that incline and give it a little more intensity, but it's just not going to match those other things. So if you're someone who's not wanting crazy intensity, or you're coming off an injury or a bit older, or you just, you want that cardiovascular workout without that full body impact and full body fatigue, cross trainers are awesome. And you can even vary them up. Every time I've walked in a gym, I don't know, you might have seen people who are going backwards on them and you think they just haven't got it right. In a lot of cases, they haven't. They're screwing up. But it's actually an effective thing you can do. So I'm not judging them because they might be going that way. When you reverse the motion, there's a little more hamstring engagement through the back of your leg. So you can kind of change up the variation of the muscles and what's used. So it's something, say you're going for 5 minutes, you can slow it down and you can, reverse and get a little more full leg engagement through all those different muscles. So that's a good thing. They're not the best machines if you want to do, high intensity intervals on them, because it's hard to really adjust to get it up to a super high intensity, and you got to go really fast. You might not feel in control. So I don't really recommend them for that. But for general, regular, not too intense cardio, very good choice. Next thing, and one of my favorites, is the regular stationary bike. And, you can buy like $99 ones at Walmart that are even not that bad, that you can keep in your home. The ones you're going to get in the gym are usually probably pretty good. They're going to have an easy adjustment that you can quickly bump up the intensity, whether that is a dial near the handlebars, or there's sometimes they'll have like a lever at the top so you can kind of just switch it across. So the advantage with these is they're really good for doing those high intensity intervals if you want to do those sprints, because you can instantly turn it up and crank up the whole thing, and then you can dial it right back down and then cruise again with it. And I mean, one of the biggest things in fitness is obviously spin classes, whether it's Soul Cycle and you're part of that cult in NYC. I'm kidding, but it's got its own connections here. I used to teach spin classes back here in London, but before, like, the spin things were very big, and it would involve different activities you'd be doing while you're on the bike. So sometimes it involved like some free weight shoulder raises or arm curls and whatever. But these are one of the best ways to get fit without, again, any of that impact. There's no joint impact. Your knees are free from any suffering and pounding from pavement. It can be good for, obviously, ankles and low back and the whole deal. And you can get crazy good fitness results from it. If you look at the best athletes in the world, and we're talking from like a VO2 max, a body's ability to use oxygen, heart rate, like resting heart rate, nothing can touch those competitive cyclists like the Tour de France guys and whatever. And even it's hard to talk about Lance Armstrong, but like, drug use aside, whatever, the guy in his prime had a resting heart rate in the 30s or something like that, which is like, it's barely moving. And all the top level guys, and even guys who just do regular training, and they're not even in any events, or they don't race competitively, but they train like it. These guys have, I mean, you can transform your body into this just calorie burning, oxygen utilizing machine, and it's unbelievable what cycling can do. But it's really brutally hard, and it takes a long time, so you might not have all that time available, because like, think how far you can travel on a bike compared to running. So to get a full effective workout and kind of get into these different fitness states, it's hours and hours every day, and people just don't have that. So that's why using stationary bikes and doing these spin classes and doing your own intervals can be very good. And then at the same time, if you just want to get on there and pedal, it's still going to be good cardiovascular fitness, because you can control the intensity on it. So if you have like 20-25 minutes, you can make it an effective workout. You don't want to have the intensity so high that you're just like gasping and like pushing it out. You still want to be feeling like you're working out. You still want to be, maybe sweating a little bit. But again, that same thing, you should be able to carry on a conversation. It's something I like to do at the end of workouts a lot. And because I play hockey, and biking and hockey kind of go hand in hand. And if you look at NHL players, this is their main usual form of cardio fitness as far as machine wise, because they're on the ice all the time. They're always skating. They're, they're engaging every muscle in the lower body. So a lot of them don't do a lot of, say, running per se. Some of the guys do, but the way they get their cardiovascular fitness maintained is by riding bikes, all of them. If you know who Connor McDavid is, the fastest guy probably in the history of hockey, so agile, so quick, so much power, and he's on the bike all the time. All of them are. It's a way that they can continue their fitness without giving too much breakdown to their body, because they're constantly skating. They're always engaging their body. There's always, they need the recovery time. There's not a lot of it in general, like for any pro athlete. So they turn to the stationary bike because it's a way to get that cardiovascular fitness, still engage the muscles, but not have it that intense that it, it's potentially taking them a few steps backwards because they're breaking their bodies down too much. So stationary bike, amazing, potentially one of the best cardio machines you can use, because there's so much variability to it. You can always make it different. You can change intensity. You can change the speed you're going. You can challenge yourself. If you're feeling, some days you're more energetic and you can push yourself, you can do that. If you're feeling a little more run down, you can back off the intensity. So it's always, you're always able to switch things up. The next thing we'll talk about cardio machine wise is related is the recumbent bike. So that is more, it's the stationary bike that's more in the seated position, and it's got a little more decline to the seat. I hope you know what I'm talking about. It's just where the back is a little bit on an angle and you're sitting down pedaling from sort of this recumbent position as opposed to sitting up on top of the bike. So the advantage with this is now you're getting the same thing, still good cardiovascular benefit. You're not impacting the joints. You're free from all that impact. But with the reclined position, it takes the pressure off your lower back. So if you're one of those people that has any back issues, you can feel it just from regular things like walking, or you can even feel it on a regular, if you're out on a normal bike ride or on the normal stationary bike, it can still have an impact. When you sit down in that reclined recumbent position, it takes all that pressure off the lower back. So now you can have a little bit more of a cardiovascular session. So good for people like that. Not as intense because of the change in your position and not as much, leg muscle engagement. Still some, and you can still change the intensity and stuff like that. So very good for anyone who's, suffering from any of those variables. The next piece of equipment is kind of the next step from that, again, for people who have problems. And these are the upper body, they sometimes call them ergometers. They're the ones that look like the big egg beaters where you're just moving your arms around. So now it's for someone who just doesn't have, has to avoid any lower body activity, people in wheelchairs or whatever, but you can still get a bit of a cardiovascular workout. So now it's, like I said, just moving your arms. It's still going to increase your heart rate. It's just not going to be an overall body cardiovascular workout. So obviously not as engaging as some of those other pieces. But if you have any limitations and you still want to, get some form of sweat and improve your lung and your heart health and capacity and whatnot, it's kind of like, I hate saying like the last resort, but it is there. It is an option. It's not super effective, but it is still something. And that's the idea, that you still just want to get those health improvements and the cardiovascular benefits, and you'll get a little bit from using one of those things. And again, you can make them actually pretty intense. They're harder than they look. I've tried them because you can dial up the resistance on it and you can burn out pretty quick. And then people who use these regularly are really good at them. And it is, it's their ideal form of cardio. So they're still going to get some benefits and some results from it. Next cardio machine is going to be the Stairmaster or Stair Stepper or whatever you want to call them. So these are a little more specific, and not every gym has them because they tend to be the most expensive pieces of cardio equipment. They're brutally hard to maintain. And I'm just saying, like, if you haven't listened to the show before, I've worked in gyms for the last 20 years. I've worked in multiple countries, cities, from little personal training studios to massive big corporate chains. And I'm so familiar with all this equipment and the maintenance that goes behind them. And if these stair steppers, like Stairmasters, go down, you're screwed. They're so hard to fix. They're so expensive to get the people in. And that's why you only see gyms that only have a couple of them. And a lot don't even have them. The place I work out now has none. The last place I was at had maybe 2. They're just an absolute headache as far as taking care of them. And again, they cost a friggin' fortune. But this is probably your most intense cardiovascular machine. When you're doing this constant stepping, it's a form of consistent overload. Every step is like harder than the one before. It's different than that, steady state where you're locked in on that certain heart range. As the session progresses with stairs, I mean, you've climbed stairs before, it gets harder and harder as it goes. Where if you're on a treadmill locked in at whatever it is, 2 miles an hour, at, a 1% incline, whatever, you stay with that, you're going to get more fatigue, but nothing changes. When you're constantly taking the next step with your own body weight and pushing up, it gets harder and harder as it goes. So it's a huge cardio vascular workout. It's a massive calorie burner, but it's going to be the most challenging. And this is usually the cardio piece of choice. I talked about people who are fitness competitors or bodybuilders or fitness models or bikini model, anyone who's got to get lean, low body fat, good muscular definition. This is usually the go-to choice for people in that state, especially if they're getting down to competition form. Not always, but more often than not, you see this just because it's a big workout in a shorter amount of time. And, like I just mentioned, picture anytime you've had to go up multiple flights of stairs, you are winded by the end of it. Even in your house, even if you're just sitting down on the couch going up one flight of stairs, you totally feel it. So probably, the ultimate form of cardiovascular health, extremely challenging. And again, you can kind of set the paces, but once that thing gets going, you got to be comfortable and locked in on it. So if you're new to fitness and cardio, maybe not what you want to start with, but something you can progress to. Okay, I'm going to do one more. So the last one is a rower or rowing machine. And this might be my personal favorite for all the different things we've talked about combined into one. So with the rower, it's a full body workout. You're using essentially every muscle in your body, so it requires muscular endurance, but at the same time, it requires cardiovascular endurance. So you're getting this kind of double shot in one workout. And it's also engaging your core a lot because you have to have good upright support. It's good for strengthening your back. I mean, look how fit rowers are. We're talking about cyclists. Rowers are right up there as far as their ability, the VO2 max and the oxygen consumption and how well their body utilizes it. But at the same time, their muscular endurance is off the charts because they're going for miles where you're pulling against this resistance of the water. So in the gym, again, it's the ultimate form. There's not the impact problems. There's not the joint issues. And the good thing with the rowers is you can go at your own intensity. And if you've been on them, you know what I mean. There's really not a lot of settings because the harder you pull, the more resistance there is. It's exactly kind of mimic that effect in the water. The slower you pull, the less resistance there is. So you can always go at your own pace and make it harder or easier. Again, if you're coming in and you're a little more fatigued, you can get into a good rhythm and ride that out and not have to worry about having to keep up with the machine. At the same time, if you feel like pushing yourself a little more, boom, you can go in. So, I mean, rowers are used big time in any CrossFit gyms, things like, if like F45 or any of those high intensity interval training gyms, rowers are always a part of it. Or when there's like the CrossFit challenges or the circuit workouts, sometimes that's part of it. They'll have to do, 10 cleans and then they got to do a 250-meter row and whatever. So amazing cardio, fitness, overall body challenging, muscular endurance, lean muscle building. It's to me, it's probably the ultimate form of cardio. But again, very challenging. If you're new to fitness or you're not ready to go super high intense, you can do a light, steady workout, but it might not be that engaging as far as a calorie burning thing if you're going at a very slow intensity. Still good because you're, still engaging all your muscles and it's a full body exercise and the whole deal. But, without giving it a little more of that intensity, it might not be super effective compared to, say, if you got on a treadmill, put the incline up a bit and just sort of walked at that might be a bit better calorie burner, body fat burner in your case. But if you are feeling fit, you're progressing well in the gym, man, add in rowing after. If you've done a weight training session and it's gone, say, like 45 minutes, get on and just do 10 minutes of rowing at the end. And it's just an awesome way to kind of wind down, but kind of keep that calorie burning going. You can do the high intensity sort of interval thing on it well, because you can do a full all out push for this, 20 to 30 seconds where you're just rowing like hell and then slow it down. I was like mimicking a rowing motion there, which you cannot see, but then you slow it down, just a little more of a slower paced recovery time, and then you can do it. And so an amazing, amazing machine that I'm a big fan of. So I don't know if at the end of this, if you were, I just said the rower's one of the best, but at the same time, I love doing the stationary bike and even regular outdoor biking, which I do a lot of too. So I don't know if you were waiting for me to say what's the number one cardio machine. And, as it always is the case, there's not a number one choice. It's what's going to be best in your situation. And ultimately, mixing in any cardio training, whether that's all you do or you're doing a lot of good strength training and you have that program, still mixing in cardiovascular fitness 2 to 3 times a week, whether it's the outdoor walking or the indoor on the bike or the rower or whatever, still important for heart health, lung health, keeping you, as fit and healthy as you can be. So what it comes down to is, what is the machine that you are going to most likely always want to do and continue to do? And that means, trying them all out and see what appeals to you more. The best fitness or the best program or the best training is the one that you're going to do. So the best program and workout and equipment in the world doesn't mean anything if it just doesn't resonate with you and you're just not motivated to do it. Then it just sits there, or that program suffers, or that ability to get fitter. It's more about consistency and adherence and just picking those things that appeal to you most. So if you've never done these things, try the stair climber. You might love it and you're like, I can do this all the time. Or you might like doing the recumbent bike because you're like, oh, I've had whatever joint or a little bit of back problems and I'm not liking the treadmill anymore. Move over to that. Find the thing that you're most likely going to stick with and that you're going to be happy to do and excited to do. And that's what's going to get you fit, is that consistency and the adherence. All these things are all good. It's all cardiovascular health. It's all fitness. Pick one of them. It's still going to be awesome because you're being active and you're moving. But what's nice, if you're part of a gym, you have access to all this different equipment. And in most gyms, you have, again, the availability of hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of equipment and machines for $1 a day, $2 a day, and all this awesome cardio stuff. So start trying it. If you've felt like you've only had to do one thing, mix it up. Try and find these things that are, I don't know, feel more fun to you, or you're more likely to stick with, whether you have good music to listen to or a podcast, or if you're listening to it right now while you're doing cardio, if you're listening to this show. That's what I do when I do cardio. I'm listening to shows all the time. You can make it easier. You don't have to do cardio every day. You don't have to feel like you have to be a slave to it, but it's still going to be beneficial. You still want to keep your cardiovascular system as healthy as possible. And if you're not part of a gym, get outside, try the walking thing. You can, if you've been doing the running, continue with it if it hasn't been facing any problems. If you've been walking for a bit, you want to bump it up, try that low intensity interval training I was talking about, where you do this 3 to 5 minutes of regular walking and do the light jog for 90 seconds. So all this stuff is available to you. It's just kind of getting locked in with what you feel you can be the most consistent with. And that's what gets results. You can get very specific with details of programs and stuff later on, but ultimately what gets results with fitness, weight loss, muscle building is consistency. So hopefully you've got some good info and, a different viewpoint on all the different available cardiovascular equipment, and you can, kind of explore it a little more and see what's going to work best for you. Okay, let's tie a bow on this puppy and wrap it up. Again, check out the show notes for this one, regainedwellness.com/149, and I'll have those other episodes linked up on the high intensity interval training, a little more research and info on the low intensity interval training, just if you want to go a little deeper in this whole thing. But ultimately, thank you for listening. If you have any questions or other topics you want to see covered, you can write me at info@regainedwellness.com. Don't forget to subscribe to the show, because then we'll be able to talk again soon. So that's it for today. Thanks for listening. See you later.